Y'all have already heard that y'all are in the best job in Rotary.
Keep going.
You are in the best job. You've also heard that your role in that job is you're going to be someone who is going to make a difference. You heard Jamie say that. We're going to make a difference. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's also the most fun job that in Rotary as well. And why do I say that? Because you folks are where the rubber really meets the road. You know, you're thinking, so for that reason, I want to welcome y'all to the leadership team and part of that group. Because while you're in the best job, and you're going to make a difference, you're going to have fun at it. And you know why? Because all of y'all are going to be and are leaders. You are leaders, and you're leaders in your group. And as it relates to our district and our leadership team, y'all are in the most important position because you touch those club presidents and those team leaders that Johnny was talking about more than anybody else in our leadership team. More than me as district governor, more than these folks as past district governors, more than Rod even is the trainer, district trainer. Y'all are going to touch those folks more than anybody else. I know half of you know who I am because you worked with me this particular year. And so 7 of you in this room I know fairly well. There's 7 I've met along the way, but you may not know me quite as well. And what I'd like to just quickly let you know is just a piece about me. We talked about those types of people and all that kind of stuff. I don't know where the heck I'm on that chart. But I grew up and I was in a military college, okay? So I learned about leadership early on. Not the first year. I learned how to be a follower the first year of the service. But I learned how to lead in the next 3 years. And then for 25 years in the Air Force, I had the opportunity to lead there because that's just the way, the job scenario that I chose to be in. And like many of you, I continued to lead then past that. And when I listened to all that Jimmy said and Johnny said, what we did up here, it brought back a lot of memories to me from all those business schools that I sat in, business courses, my MBA, and all of that. And then I looked at the list, and y'all captured some really critical things that I'm sure Paula Matthews is going to touch on as well, because she's going to talk to you about leadership. And while my job today is to talk to you about motivating club presidents, you can't talk about motivating if you don't at least speak about leadership. So as I gazed through some of this stuff, I listened to all those lists, and I recalled my classes and all of that. And there's some other terms that Rod talked about. You got to package this stuff. So maybe we package all this. You got to talk the talk. You got to walk the walk. You got to be a 1-minute manager. You got to be this. Y'all remember all those terms. I remember them as well. But I came up, though, in the School of Hard Knocks. So what I'd like to share with y'all today is just what, in my view, we don't have on any of those charts. We don't have it on any of the things I think we actually said. We might have alluded to it a little bit. But that issue is motivating clubs through leadership and the use of the power of positive reinforcement in order to take that trait or that tool and then increase our performance in clubs. And what I'm really after with this group is to start talking about how do we make a culture change in our district and in our Rotary. And I believe that that is through positive reinforcement. Let me take you back a little bit. When I graduated from the Citadel and went off to the Air Force, my job was food service officer. Now Charlotte can relate to that. I was on a flying base. Who is the #1 person on a flying base or a military or a Marine base, in your case, that had a flying mission? Who's the number one?
Ours is the CO.
Well,
Wing commander.
Well,
wing commander. Ours, it was a fighter pilot. If you weren't a fighter pilot,
ours tend to be a fighter pilot. That's ours.
that's right. But in my world, fighter pilot. Also in my world, then besides a fighter pilot, it was those who felt like they were a direct supporter of a fighter pilot. And I was a food service officer. Now, my job was to deliver 1,000 to 2,000 meals every day within a 2-hour time period. I was a young lieutenant back then, and I thought, gosh, that's pretty cool, you know. I'm a food service officer, going to do all these things. And I found out really quick that not everybody shared the same view as I shared as it related to my role and my support of the fighter pilot. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I thought through it, so I want to share with you this little story. I said, I looked and we talked about things and about finding out about people and finding out about the team that you're going to play with and all of that kind of stuff. And you got to find out about yourself too. And I looked at it and I said, okay, I got to feed 2,000 people in a 2-hour period. What do I need to be able to do? What's the most important thing that I need to have happen in that time period? Well, for me to be successful, or to be successful in supporting the fighter pilot. I thought about all kinds of things. I'm sure you're all thinking about them right now. I had to have skilled cooks, and we had to be able to produce really good food, and needed to smile when they came across the line, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But I figured out real quickly, if I didn't have my equipment running, we couldn't do any of those things. It didn't matter how many smiles we had on our face. It didn't matter if we didn't have the equipment. And in our business, I'm sure it's like that on your Marine base. The civil engineer provided support to every squadron commander on that base. And so the civil engineer held the tool as it related to how I perceive, how am I going to be successful, and how am I going to motivate in order to be able to succeed.
Keep him fed well.
Well, in the Air Force, they say we have the best food in the Air Force and we have the best sleeping facilities. And you know what? That's how they looked at us. They looked at us, though, as the cooks and the bed makers. We weren't part of the combat support team, and we definitely weren't fighter pilots, okay? So in the big scheme of things, as I thought through that, and I thought about civil engineers, civil engineer has to do this for everybody. I figured out really quick where I was on that priority list. Oh, there we go. So what are we going to do? How can we deal in that kind of environment? And I came up with this thought. I said, so I know what behavior I want. The behavior that I want is to be able to have somebody quickly react to my equipment and get it up and running again. And I thought about the system. Civil engineer, they have to have a controller of all those work orders and stuff like that. And then I thought about, who do they send out? Do they ever send out the chiefs or the top guys when they come to fix your equipment or whatever? No, they send the airmen, the youngest people, in order to provide that work. So I said, you know what? I don't need to stand up in front of the wing commander and say, I've got all this equipment and it's been down for all these days and it's the civil engineer's fault. Because I thought if I say that, that's going to make me even further down the list. And I knew that I couldn't, you know, I just couldn't go in there and focus on our issue as it related to this from a negative viewpoint. And I said, that's just not going to work. We're going to knock it. We're already cooks and bed makers, you know, so what are we going to do? So I decided, you know what, if I can go over and find out who that person in civil engineering is, who does all the prioritization and sending out all the work requests, if I could find that person, and if I took them some chocolate cake, just like y'all are getting ready to have, chocolate cake back there, and if I could take that chocolate cake and say to them, I want to thank you for whatever support you've been doing to help us get our equipment up, and I wanted to bring you some chocolate cake. Now, unfortunately, if we can't keep that equipment running, I can't bring this chocolate cake every day, but I'll try to bring it when I can, if we can keep the equipment running. Boy, that was one great lesson to learn. All of a sudden, I started seeing more of their one-stripers and two-stripers coming to work on our equipment. And then I realized, those folks, how am I going to motivate those young airmen then to actually fix my equipment and fix it right the first time and not have to come back? And I realized if I had the opportunity for them to do something right, just once, I was looking for just one time when they did something good, and I grabbed that airman. And he said, "Oh, a lieutenant's over there, talking to me, And I said, "I want to thank you for what you did. I want you to come over here and sit down, bring him a sandwich or whatever, for doing that." So my thought there was I wanted to reward with positive reinforcement the behavior that I was wanting to happen, and I wanted that to happen over and over again. And I called that chocolate cake and the in-service work request. Well, I didn't write any books or anything like that, but it's been something that's been in me since that day, and all through my years of leadership, is the value of positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcement, or versus a negative way to try to get something from somebody. And I just thought, chocolate cake in-service work request, y'all ought to know about that, because y'all are our new leaders. And you're going to be trying to find out, how do you get your club presidents and your clubs to actually be successful? So it's leading, but it's also motivating. So we talked about the leadership, I think, and the fact that I apologized to Paula earlier that I was going to have to speak a little bit on leadership, but I promised I'd try to stay out of her area. And so I put it in something that I thought maybe, Rod, if you want to come get this one, stick that up. I thought maybe if I put it in symbols, some of you, I realize, being Marines, y'all might not understand the language as well as if you could see it. So positive reinforcement. It's green beans and ice cream. Now, I didn't think of that. I thought of chocolate cake in the in-service work request. But I was given a presentation at the Columbia Rotary Club this year. And Carrie Powers, who's the club president there, had invited someone over that she wanted them to hear my message on Rotary making a difference. Because this particular guy had been thinking about this power of reinforcement, and he had his little marketing thing, which was, I make a difference. So she thought, well, I'll bring him over and let him listen to Gary, and then we'll see what happens. The guy's name is Bill Sims. He actually lives in Irmo, and his dad has been doing leadership and all of those kind of training things, and his brother and his sister for many, many years. But he actually recalled his story, and he came up to me and he said, let me tell you about my world. My mother, when I was just a little tot, she wanted me to eat my green beans. I didn't like green beans. And he said, I didn't want the green beans. And he said, my mother, it was so insightful. What she came up with, if you eat your green beans, I'll reward you with ice cream. Green beans and ice cream. Pretty simple concept. So with that, we talked earlier about your favorite recipe. Who said that? Somebody said your recipe for success. So in my view, I want y'all to take this away, and I can't write really well. My hands are not like they used to be. But this says, my favorite recipe. Green beans and ice cream. All right. Think about that a little bit. Positive power, positive reinforcement. You know what? I think this message could work whether you were talking to a club president or talking to a military person or whatever. I think this is a great message I'd like to share if you're just having conversations and trying to get your kids to do something. Johnny, you'll love this. I think it's great for dealing with your spouse. You know? I think road carriers, we already said, some of those folks, you know, how do we get them and motivate them? Maybe green beans and ice cream might be a way. Obviously, our club members, if you were in business, I'd be telling you co-workers and all of those things, but right here, and this is the one I want you to take away. In your new role as a leader in our district, I think you can use this thought of green beans and ice cream to help your presidents be successful and motivate them to where they're headed.
Are you really going to tear off this time?
What's that?
Are you really going to tear off this post?
Yeah.
I started that last time you stopped.
Oh, I thought it was going off. Yeah, Rod got it. Rod got it.
No, no, this one.
Okay. You are the new leader. I've been there, as I told you. Started out as a young lieutenant. We moved not almost every 2 years, sometimes a little bit quicker. And what I learned from that is that every boss I've ever had, and I know y'all don't have bosses, okay, but every boss that I ever had, they always wanted more. And I can assure you, David is going to want more this year from you as an assistant governor trying to raise the level and the performance of your clubs and your club presidents. And how are we going to do that? We heard Johnny talk about I'll start here. It's about production, and that's what we just talked about in terms of increasing performance. But it's over here, action and engagement. Important thing to focus on action and engagement. And in the case of more, David's going to be talking about community service, community support. Then he's going to go over here and he's going to say, don't forget about donations to our foundation, and so forth. He's going to be talking about more. Clean water. How important is that across the entire, our entire universe, wanting in our strong support of wanting to provide clean water everywhere around the world. David's going to want y'all to help him and your clubs to achieve more in that area. And in my view, Jimmy, I love you for CART, but I also eradicate polio, and thank you for going on the NI Dig visit. I think we had two, didn't we, from our, didn't David Boucher? Was he there? Okay, I thought he was there. Okay. Eradicate polio. So you can see more. David's going to be wanting more. And then I think in his mind and in y'all's mind, it's all going to come down to, it's all about changing behavior in order to be able to do more. Changing behavior. Kind of like that chocolate cake in the in-service work request, on where we were on the pecking order of providing now combat support, because we were able to increase and be part of that team in that process. All right. Johnny said it's engagement. And he's right. I'll tell you that engagement is very, very important. So I would lead with engagement, because engagement is going to help you achieve quality performance from those people that you're trying to get this out of, your club presidents and the teams of the clubs, which is going to help you improve performance in that regard. And if you do that and you're engaged and you're performing, you're going to be providing critical community needs. You're going to be solving problems for people in your community who don't know where else to turn. Very important. And when you do that, can you imagine the feeling that each and every one of those people who were involved in that process, including yourself as the one who was leading this, as it relates to feeling good and feeling and understanding what Rotary is all about and what it means. And you know what, Johnny, I'm here to tell you, it's going to help us increase our membership. I know it's going to help us because we're going to be talking about what Rotary is, and Rotary is impactful action and meaningful service in order to make a difference. And guess what? The more members we have, I can assure you that our donor giving will go up from that process. So we talked about, you heard the video clip about the why, and you start, and, to get to the why, you'll see that we're not starting from wanting to raise all this money or get all this money. And once we have all that money, we're going to be able to come out here and provide all this community support and quality performance and so forth through engagement. We're starting from the other way. Why are we engaged? What is it that we're doing? And why are we doing that for engagement? So I think engagement is important, but I'm not so sure it's everything, because I believe that you've got to engage, but if you're not committed, you'll probably maybe achieve it once or twice in the beginning, but then as the people walk away or leave or whatever, that commitment's not there, you're not going to sustain it. Think about how many of you probably in this room got down on your knee and asked somebody to be your wife. And you had a nice ring, and some of the ladies were the recipient of that ring, and at that time you were engaged, and that was a happy, happy feeling. How do we go from engagement, though, to commitment? In the case of that example I was giving you, when you commit, that's a stronger and even more powerful level that you're going to be operating on. Engagement to commitment. And I believe you're going to find that's through, in my view, positive reinforcement.
Difference between the chicken and the pig, right?
There you go. So how do we get beyond engagement? Beyond engagement. We heard from Jimmy. He talked about two kinds of people. I kind of think there's probably three categories in my mind. You got the non-compliant. Those are the folks that says, I'm not going to do it. And if you don't think we have club presidents that say, I'm not going to do it, let me wake you up a minute, because I've been through that school of hard knocks. Sometimes you just ask them to answer an email. Just read it, okay? There's going to be 10% in any organization, including our own, who just aren't going to do it because they don't want to. Then you have the compliant. That's that crowd that says, I'll do it if I have to. And in most organizations, that's probably about 80%. 80%, whether it's our members, or whether it's our presidents, or whether it's anybody, any kind of people. But I'm talking to you about, presidents. 80%, they'll do it, but only if they feel like they have to. I think we heard a few of those words. You're going to get calls, you're going to have the governor say, I need your help, or whatever. When they feel that heat, and it shouldn't be heat, but when they feel that, that's called, I'll do it if I have to. Here's where we want. Wouldn't it be nice if all of our members said, I'm committed, I want to do it, whether you're watching me or not, or whether you're asking me or not, I want to do it. This is where we want to operate if we can. So think about that a minute. In this area here, non-compliant. In some of the management schools that I've been to and so forth, they say when you're operating here, a lot of managers, a lot of leaders, they just leave everyone alone until what?
Until they fail.
Something happen. Would you say fail?
Until they fail.
And maybe not till they fail, but until it comes time to zap them, and you zap them. Unfortunately, a zap is probably more negative than positive. But anyway, if you zap them, they'll go generally in back and try to get into this compliant area here. But what we really want, remember, is we want them to do it whether we're watching or not. So what happens to our clubs if they're operating from you as their leader and working with those club presidents? If you leave them alone until you zap them, and then they'll probably get back in line until the next time you zap them. Okay, so think about that. We're down, we're up in the zap, they're down again, you're up in the zap. But what is the zap? Negative reinforcement, right? Wonder how many times you'll be zapped before you'll decide you don't care. And you'll become just entrenched in I will not do it. So just think about that for a minute. I kind of think that we need a little less zap. And what we really need is more ice cream. More ice cream. Or in the case of my life, chocolate cake. Okay? So that's, I think maybe you can relate to that. I think you can. That zap and that feeling and where we're going. This guy, Bill Simmons, calls his thing green bean leadership. As I told you, I call it chocolate cake. But it's all about positive reinforcement. And there's this 5-letter word here, whiffle. Y'all all know whiffle, don't you? Yeah. Y'all know whiffle? Whiffle is what's in it for me. We heard that not only on the tape, we heard that from Jimmy. People, you're wanting to change anyone's behavior, you need to be able to answer that question, what's in it for me? Now the me is not me. The me is those people you're trying to motivate. So you've got to really focus and figure out with your personality checking and all of those things that we talked about earlier, how are you going to figure out what's in it for those club presidents, those team leaders in your club, those Rotarians, that you are also going to want more, right? Bill says it's green beans and ice cream. And here's what he said. He recalled again his mom. And he said, when she started the I'll give you ice cream if you'll eat your green beans, it was a happy time. He had a big smile on his face. Because why? She was giving him ice cream. And when did she give it to him? Right when he ate the green beans. You know, we talk about thank you. Thank you could be that ice cream. So if you're giving someone a thank you right after they do something that you were really hoping they would do, that was a behavior change that you were really wanting them to do, and you say thank you, it doubles the amount of time that they'll respond to you according to research. Now, if you give them that reward, it might have to be a little more than just thank you, but whatever kind of reward, and you give it to them right then, not 30 days later, not when the awards or request for rewards are out there and coming in, but when that actual behavior happens, and it happens now, I think you'll see that you'll have understood what's in it for me. y'all were driving up today. You know, we were talking about that compliant and those three categories. All right. We're talking about positive reinforcement. I do believe like about 1,000 things I've spoken about when I was membership chair and all of that. It's not one size. One size does not fit all. I really believe that. And the thing that kind of gets me about that is think about those three categories we talked about. Non-compliant, the compliant, and the committed. And what were we trying to do? We were trying to move everybody towards the commitment. And y'all are probably thinking, he doesn't know what he's talking about, you know, but think about when you were driving here this morning. Just driving along, speed limit. How many of the folks that were out there driving here were non-compliant? And that 10%, they weren't going to comply even if they spotted a policeman. Now, some would. Some would say, I spot the policeman, and I'm going to move to the compliant. Okay? But how many folks did you actually see in the committed range where they were going to go the speed limit whether someone was watching or not? Here's another one. And this one, boy, when I started thinking about this, it made so much sense, you know. We like to give T-shirts, maybe some kind of Rotarian of the Month, or maybe there's some other thing that club presidents or AGs or district governors might do. And we're going to use that and we think about that. That has got to be a motivator, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, we got 10% of our members that are in this non-compliant area, 10% over here in the committed area, and then we got this group in the middle. If I give and they know, I can assure you, they know who the 10% or 20%, if you're in the 20-80 rule, who's out here who's committed and are doing it whether they're being watched or not, and they know who the slackers are as well. But if I give the same reward to everybody, that T-shirt or that employee or whatever, this particular person who got the T-shirt, they're going to smile, right? And let's just say that is me here, and I'm the slacker, and I now have my own T-shirt. I'm going to feel pretty good. But, Carl, if you were the committed, how are you going to feel if I got a T-shirt and you didn't get one?
Be mad.
Yeah, you might be saying, well, how come Gary got that T-shirt and I didn't get it? You're probably going to be upset, and what is that going to do to you? You're probably going to fall here. I don't think you'll fall here, but I think you'll probably go into compliant mode. You'll do it if you're told to do it, but where do we want everybody operating? We want them operating here. So when you think about that, you want to be careful when you use those one-size-fits-all kinds of rewards. I had 2 daughters, Laurie and Erin. I was gone all the time, TDY, just like I think the Marines probably are and all that. And if I came home with my 2 daughters, and I said, tonight, we want to celebrate Laurie because she's the best daughter. What do you think, Aaron? How do you think Aaron would feel? So in that regard, I'm just recommending to you positive reinforcement. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So you do need to figure out who the team players are, where they're coming from, but more importantly, pinpoint what behavior you're trying to change and reward them when they do that behavior. So reward people for what they do. And I think you'll be in a good, solid position in that regard. All right. You're right. This windbag has been up here long enough. But I hope that maybe what everyone would take away is that idea that I learned as a young lieutenant when I was trying to find my way on a base where the supreme was the fighter pilot. And I just wanted to get in that category of combat support. I wanted to be known as the combat supporter, but they were recognizing me as just the cook and the bed maker. And I would tell you, 10 points of behavior then that's going to help you move to what it is you believe is your why and what you want to do. You then provide positive reinforcement. So the power of reinforcement, the power of positive reinforcement is a whole lot better than negative reinforcement where it's just zap. Or you're going to keep taking them up and down until they stop. When they stop, they'll either stop for good and resign, or they'll stop and just not care. And you don't want either one of those to happen. But if you can be positive reinforcement, you will change behavior. I'm here to tell you, in that civil engineering squadron, if you ask them who was king on that base, is it related to their job, they'd probably say it was those cooks.